The buzzing neon lights of a lonely Texas gas station flickered like a warning. Two corrupt deputies believed they had found the perfect victim, an exhausted, isolated truck driver traveling alone through the darkness. They were about to make the greatest and final mistake of their miserable careers. The air along State Route 87 was heavy with humidity and the sharp smell of heated asphalt. Crickets chirped from an overgrown roadside ditch, their steady rhythm the only sound in the night. Then the powerful engine of a customized Peterbilt 389 shattered the silence. Behind the wheel sat Darius Mercer. To the rest of the world, Darius appeared to be nothing more than another long-haul trucker struggling through the final stretch of an exhausting cross-country route. He wore a faded denim jacket and a grease-stained baseball cap pulled low over his eyes. His face carried the weary scowl of a man who had spent far too long staring at the white lines of an empty highway. He had broad shoulders, powerful arms, and calloused hands, the build of a man who did not tolerate disrespect easily. But on this night, his job was to appear tired, vulnerable, and completely alone. Darius guided the massive 18-wheeler into the cracked concrete parking lot of Rusty's Travel Plaza, a decaying gas station located on the outskirts of Ridgefield, Texas. Ridgefield was not merely another small dot on a map. It was a black hole for constitutional rights. For years, the Ridgefield Police Department had operated less like a law enforcement agency and more like a heavily armed criminal organization. Its officers had perfected a particular form of highway robbery. They targeted travelers from outside the area, especially minorities, while pretending to conduct legitimate traffic enforcement. They manufactured probable cause, carried out illegal vehicle searches, and abused civil asset forfeiture laws to steal thousands of dollars in cash. When drivers resisted, they were beaten, charged with fabricated felonies, and buried beneath a deeply corrupt local judicial system. No one fought back. No one ever won. But Darius Mercer was not a truck driver. He was a seasoned veteran of the Federal Bureau of Investigation who specialized in systemic public corruption. His Peterbilt was not transporting commercial freight either. The trailer was completely empty except for a state-of-the-art mobile uplink transmitter concealed behind the front bulkhead. The cab had been equipped with 6 microscopic 4K cameras embedded inside the air vents, dome light, dashboard, and other hidden locations. High-fidelity audio receivers had been woven into the fabric of the driver's seat. Every breath, every whispered word, and every footstep around the truck was being transmitted through an encrypted satellite connection to a darkened mobile command center positioned nearby. Inside that vehicle, Special Agent Everett Shaw and a team of federal prosecutors watched the monitors with bated breath, their hands hovering near the radio controls. Darius switched off the engine. The silence that followed felt heavy and oppressive. He grabbed his thermos, pushed open the massive metal door, and climbed down onto the oil-stained concrete. He walked toward the diesel pump, swiped a corporate fuel card, and inserted the heavy metal nozzle into the truck's tank. Right on cue, a shadow separated itself from the darkness at the far end of the lot. A black and white Ford Explorer patrol cruiser rolled slowly beneath the glowing gas station canopy. Its headlights were switched off. The cruiser advanced with the quiet patience of a predator. Its tires crunched over loose gravel and broken glass before the vehicle stopped at an aggressive angle, deliberately blocking the truck's exit. The doors opened. Deputy Wade Granger and Deputy Colton Pike stepped out. Granger was a longtime veteran of the department. He was a heavy-set man with a swollen beer belly, a permanently flushed face, and eyes that seemed completely empty of human compassion. 14 excessive force complaints had once appeared on his record. Every one of them had conveniently disappeared inside the local precinct. Pike was his shadow, a young rookie with a freshly shaved head, restless energy, and a desperate need to prove he could be every bit as ruthless as his mentor. Darius did not look at them. He kept his attention on the fuel pump as the numbers continued climbing, carefully playing the role of a tired driver who wanted nothing more than to finish his route and go home. Long night, boy. Granger's voice cut through the humid air. It was a gravelly drawl soaked in condescension. He did not call Darius driver. He called him boy, deliberately emphasizing the word and establishing the racial hostility he intended to exploit. Darius slowly turned his head. Just trying to reach Dallas, officer. I have a delivery deadline. Granger spat a stream of chewing tobacco onto the concrete, barely missing the toes of Darius's steel-toed boots. His right hand rested casually on the grip of his sidearm. Dallas is a long way from here, and judging by those New Mexico plates, you're a long way from home too. Granger stared at the trailer. What are you hauling? Empty trailer, Darius replied evenly, keeping his voice steady and carefully balancing compliance with nervousness. I'm heading back to the depot. Pike had already removed a heavy metal flashlight from his duty belt and begun circling the rear of the trailer. He aggressively directed the blinding white beam beneath the truck and struck the aluminum side panels with his fist. Hey, Wade, Pike called from behind the trailer, his voice echoing through the deserted lot. There's a cracked taillight housing back here, defective equipment. Darius knew with absolute certainty that the taillight was in perfect condition. FBI mechanics at Quantico had inspected every inch of the vehicle before the operation began, but he did not argue. That was not part of the plan. Is that right? Granger said with a smirk. He took a slow, threatening step toward Darius and deliberately invaded his personal space. The deputy smelled of stale coffee and old sweat. You're operating an unsafe commercial vehicle on county roads. That's a serious problem. Granger extended his hand. License, registration, logbook, and bill of lading, now. Darius slowly reached toward his back pocket, making every movement visible so the deputies could not claim he was reaching for a weapon. He removed a worn leather wallet and handed Granger a stack of perfectly forged documents. The deputy snatched them away. He did not examine a single page. Instead, he stared directly at Darius, narrowing his eyes like a predator assessing its prey. He was searching for fear, searching for weakness. You look nervous, driver, Granger said softly, a cruel smile forming across his lips. Why are you nervous? I'm not nervous, sir. I'm tired, Darius replied. His heartbeat remained steady. Inside the command center, Agent Shaw watched the biometric information transmitted by Darius's smartwatch. His pulse remained remarkably calm. I think you're lying to me, Granger continued. He stepped so close that his badge nearly touched Darius's chest. I think you're transporting something through my town. Granger's expression hardened. We get plenty of your kind moving fentanyl along this corridor. Or maybe you're carrying cash for the cartels. Is that what this is? I already told you, the trailer is empty, Darius said. His voice became slightly firmer. Then you won't object if we inspect the cab, Granger declared. He immediately began moving toward the driver's door of the Peterbilt. Actually, officer, Darius said, stepping into his path, I do object. I do not consent to any search of my vehicle. You stop me over a taillight, write the citation, and I'll be on my way. The atmosphere inside the gas station changed instantly. The lazy, mocking tension vanished. In its place came cold, deliberate malice. Pike hurried around the front of the truck, his hand dropping toward his taser. What did you just say to him? I said, I know my rights, Darius replied, refusing to move. You have no probable cause to search the cab of my truck. Granger laughed. It was a dry, barking sound. He glanced at Pike and shook his head. He knows his rights, Colton. We've got ourselves a roadside attorney, a constitutional scholar. Without warning, Granger's arm shot forward. He grabbed a fistful of Darius's denim jacket and shoved him backward with brutal force. Darius allowed himself to stumble until his spine slammed into the heavy steel side of the fuel pump. Before he could regain his footing, Pike attacked. The younger deputy seized Darius's left arm, twisted it violently behind his back, and drove his face against the aluminum wall of the trailer. The cold metal pressed painfully into Darius's cheek. Stop resisting, Pike shouted. It was the rehearsed phrase of a corrupt officer creating an audio excuse for his own violence. I'm not resisting, but Darius said. His voice remained remarkably calm despite the searing pain spreading through his shoulder. The deputies pulled out their handcuffs. Cold steel closed viciously around Darius's wrists, and the ratchets tightened until the metal bit into his skin. You're under arrest for interfering with a police investigation, resisting arrest, and disturbing the peace, Granger whispered directly into his ear. You're going to stand right here, keep your mouth shut, and watch us tear your truck apart. Say one word, and Pike will bounce your skull off the pavement. Do you understand? Darius did not answer. He allowed his eyes to drift upward until they briefly met the tiny camera lens hidden inside the side mirror housing. They had taken the bait. Federal civil rights violations, false arrest, assault under color of law. But the FBI did not intend to arrest only Granger and Pike. The Bureau wanted the entire corrupt department. To accomplish that, investigators needed to record the deputies attempting to steal the bait hidden inside the truck. Watch him, Granger ordered. He grabbed the large chrome handle of the Peterbilt's door and pulled himself into the cab. From where he was restrained, Darius could hear the destruction begin. Drawers were ripped open and thrown onto the floor. The mattress in the sleeper berth was overturned. Granger pulled out Darius's personal duffel bag, unzipped it, and dumped everything onto the driver's seat. There's nothing in the bags, Granger called from inside the cab. Check beneath the bunk, Pike shouted back, pressing his knee firmly against Darius's lower spine. That's where these guys usually bolt down their lockboxes. The hidden cameras recorded every detail of Granger's illegal search with agonizing clarity. The deputy stripped away the blankets, kicked aside the mini refrigerator, and tore up the thick rubber flooring beneath the sleeping area. Then he stopped. A wicked smile spread across his face. Bolted directly to the reinforced steel frame of the truck was a matte black biometric lockbox. It was roughly the size of a large briefcase constructed from heavy steel and reinforced around the hinges. To an officer like Granger, a lockbox meant only one thing: illegal cash. Large amounts of it, untraceable drug money that a frightened truck driver would never dare report missing. This was exactly what Granger and Pike had been hunting. This was their payday. Granger climbed out of the cab with his face flushed from adrenaline and greed. He nearly jumped down onto the pavement before marching directly toward Darius. Well, 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 he sneered, his breath hot against Darius's face. What have you hidden beneath the bed, driver? He smiled. It looks like a heavy-duty safe. That is private property, Darius said, perfectly imitating a frightened man whose situation was slipping out of control. You have no right to open it. I want an attorney. An attorney? Pike laughed, pressing his knee harder into Darius's back. You think an attorney is coming all the way out here? It's only us, boy. We know what's inside that box, Granger said. His voice dropped lower as he attempted to sound calm and reasonable, almost conspiratorial. Let's make an agreement. You open the box. If it contains cash, we confiscate it under suspicion of narcotics trafficking, but we allow you to leave. Granger leaned closer. We remove the handcuffs, you get into your truck and drive away. No arrest, no felony charges, you go home to your family. His expression darkened. But if you refuse to open it, you're going to the county jail, and I promise you, you won't survive inside that place. It was extortion. Clear, undeniable textbook extortion. Inside the mobile command center, Agent Shaw and the federal prosecutors were already preparing the charges. I don't have the key, Darius lied, perfectly imitating a terrified civilian trapped in an impossible situation. It's a company truck. The box belongs to the dispatcher. Nonsense, Granger spat. He turned toward the cruiser. Colton, get the crowbar from the trunk. Pike eagerly released his pressure on Darius and hurried toward the police vehicle. He opened the trunk and returned carrying a heavy iron pry bar. You truly do not want to do this, Darius warned. For the first time, he allowed the frightened trucker performance to slip. His voice became steady, deep, and authoritative. I am telling you for your own protection, do not open that box. Granger paused. He noticed the sudden change in Darius's voice. For the briefest moment, doubt crossed his face, but the intoxicating thought of $50,000 in stolen cash quickly overwhelmed his caution. His arrogance blinded him. Watch me, Granger said. He took the crowbar from Pike and climbed back into the cab. Through the open door, Darius watched Granger position himself above the lockbox. The deputy forced the forked end of the metal bar beneath the reinforced lid, directly beside the electronic keypad. He braced his boots against the interior cabinets and pushed his entire weight onto the bar. The reinforced metal groaned. Granger began sweating and grunting with effort. He pulled the crowbar free and drove it beneath the lid again, forcing it deeper against the locking mechanism. Come on, you worthless piece of garbage, he muttered. He pushed down with all the strength he possessed. The locking pins finally broke with a deafening snap of tearing metal. The lid flew open and struck the wall of the sleeper berth. Granger threw the crowbar aside and released a triumphant, greedy laugh. I opened it, Colton. I got it. How much is inside? Pike shouted from the pavement, nearly bouncing with excitement. Granger did not answer. A long silence followed. Only the soft hum of the diesel pump and the chirping crickets could be heard. Wade, Pike called again, his smile beginning to disappear. What is it, drugs? Slowly, Granger backed out of the truck's cab. He was no longer smiling. Every trace of color had drained from his face, leaving him pale and sickly. His hands trembled so violently that he had to grip the door handle to prevent himself from falling. He clutched something in his right hand. It was not a stack of $100 bills. It was not a vacuum-sealed package of cocaine. It was a sleek black leather credential wallet. The wallet was open, revealing a heavy gold badge and an official laminated identification card. Beneath the seal of the United States Department of Justice, bold and unmistakable words identified its owner. Federal Bureau of Investigation. Supervisory Special Agent Darius Mercer. Still inside the damaged metal box sat several perfectly arranged federal indictments. Printed across the top document were the names Wade Granger and Colton Pike. Granger remained frozen on the step of the Peterbilt, staring at the badge shaking in his hand. He slowly lowered his gaze past the credentials and looked toward the black truck driver still handcuffed beside the trailer. Darius pushed himself away from the truck and turned to face the deputies. He no longer appeared tired. He looked like a predator who had just closed the jaws of a carefully constructed trap. Like I told you, gentlemen, Darius said softly, holding Granger's terrified gaze. You did not want to open that box. The heavy Texas humidity suddenly felt ice cold. Deputy Wade Granger remained paralyzed on the truck's step. The FBI credentials trembled in his hand like a cursed object. The arrogant sneer that had defined his career was gone, replaced by the empty, wide-eyed stare of a man watching his entire life collapse. On the pavement below, Deputy Colton Pike still could not see the badge. He remained restless and aggressive, completely unaware of the catastrophic shift that had just taken place. "Wade, come on," Pike demanded as he moved toward the cab, one hand still resting near his taser. "What did you find? Is it cash? Tell me it's cash." Granger swallowed hard. The sound seemed to scrape from his throat. He could not look at his partner. He could not take his eyes away from Supervisory Special Agent Darius Mercer. "Colton," Granger whispered hoarsely, "take the handcuffs off him." Pike stopped. His face tightened with confusion. "What, have you lost your mind? He's a suspect. What did you find inside the box?" Darius leaned comfortably against the trailer despite his hands remaining restrained behind his back. The performance was over. The apparent victim had become the hunter, and the air around him seemed to crackle with sudden authority. "He found a mirror, Colton," Darius said with terrifying calmness, "and he is looking at decades inside a federal penitentiary." Darius raised his head slightly and spoke clearly into the empty night, directing his words toward the microscopic microphone hidden inside his collar. "Everett, the trap has been triggered. The lockbox has been breached. Move in." Pike blinked and looked wildly around the deserted gas station. "Who are you talking to? Shut your—" He never finished the sentence. A low mechanical thunder rose from the darkness surrounding Route 87. It did not come from a single direction. It came from everywhere. Almost instantly, the silence of Rusty's Travel Plaza was destroyed. A massive armored tactical vehicle burst through the overgrown bushes at the rear of the property. Its powerful floodlights immediately blinded both deputies. 4 unmarked black Chevrolet Suburbans raced in from the highway. Their tires screamed against the concrete as they surrounded the isolated police cruiser. Red and blue lights exploded from every direction, covering the decaying gas station in a frantic storm of federal authority. Above them, the heavy pounding of a Black Hawk helicopter shattered the sky. A blinding spotlight cut through the thick humidity and trapped Granger and Pike inside a circle of inescapable light. "FBI, drop your weapons. Get on the ground." The commands boomed from a loudspeaker and echoed beneath the metal roof of the gas station canopy. Before Pike could fully understand what was happening, vehicle doors flew open. More than 24 heavily armed federal agents wearing tactical equipment and Kevlar vests poured into the parking lot. "Don't do it, Colton," Darius warned softly after noticing Pike's hand twitch toward his holster in panic. "Keep your hands where I can see them. It's over." Pike slowly raised his hands. His knees shook as the overwhelming display of force crushed what remained of his confidence. An agent drove him to the pavement, removed his weapon, and replaced his department-issued handcuffs with federal restraints. Special Agent Everett Shaw, a tall man with sharp features wearing a tailored windbreaker, stepped out of the lead Suburban. He did not look toward the deputies. He walked directly to Darius and removed a universal handcuff key from his pocket. "You all right, Darius?" Shaw asked as he unlocked the restraints and freed Darius's arms. "Just some pain in my shoulder," Darius replied. He rubbed his wrists and rolled his shoulders to restore circulation. Another agent handed him his jacket and Darius pulled it on. "They gave us everything we needed," he said. "Extortion, an illegal search, false imprisonment, and destruction of property." Shaw turned toward Granger, who was being searched against the hood of his own patrol cruiser. "Deputy Granger," Shaw said with professional disgust, "you have the right to remain silent. I strongly recommend that you use it. Everything you said and did here has been recorded and stored on a secure federal server." Granger stared at Darius. His expression was filled with devastation. "You set us up," he whispered. "You set us up." "No, Wade," Darius corrected. He walked toward the cruiser and leaned down until his eyes were level with the corrupt deputy's face. "I did not set you up. I gave you a blank canvas. You painted your own conviction. The sting operation at Rusty's Travel Plaza was only the spark. Before long, the resulting fire had consumed the entire town of Ridgefield. The FBI had never been interested in arresting only 2 corrupt deputies. Federal investigators had constructed a comprehensive case under the Racketeer-Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act against the entire municipality, and they were ready to strike at the people responsible. Leading the prosecution was Assistant United States Attorney Sloan Barrett, a relentless and deeply ambitious attorney who had spent years quietly following the financial trail. While Darius acted as bait, Sloan tracked the money. She discovered exactly where the millions of dollars stolen through civil asset forfeiture had gone. The funds had not been used for community policing or new equipment. They had been transferred into offshore bank accounts and real estate shell companies. As daylight spread across Texas, federal agents carried out a coordinated operation throughout Ridgefield. Heavily armed FBI agents broke through the front door of Police Chief Orson Maddox's sprawling million-dollar estate. Maddox had ruled Ridgefield with an iron fist for years. Agents dragged him from his home while he was still dressed in silk pajamas. He screamed about jurisdictional overreach as news helicopters hovered above his carefully maintained lawn. Sloan had directly connected Maddox to a secret fund financed entirely by the highway robberies. But the greatest surprise came at the county courthouse. For years, Ridgefield officers had relied on a corrupt legal system to approve their illegal warrants and dismiss complaints filed by their victims. The central figure in that system was District Court Judge Conrad Bellamy. Bellamy was highly respected throughout the state. He regularly delivered speeches about law and order while secretly accepting a 20% share of every dollar stolen along Route 87. Darius and Agent Shaw entered Judge Bellamy's private chambers while he sat behind his mahogany desk drinking espresso. "Agents, what is the meaning of this interruption?" Bellamy demanded, his face reddening with indignation. Darius said nothing. He simply placed a thick leather-bound folder on the judge's desk. Inside were wiretap transcripts, banking records, and a signed, sworn confession from Deputy Wade Granger. Granger had betrayed his superiors immediately after entering the federal interrogation room. "Conrad Bellamy," Shaw said coldly as he locked handcuffs around the judge's wrists across the surface of his own desk. "You are under arrest for federal racketeering, wire fraud, and conspiracy to violate civil rights." Soon afterward, the Ridgefield Police Department was effectively dissolved by the Department of Justice. State police officers had to be assigned to patrol the town because nearly 80% of the local department had been indicted. Federal authorities seized the millions of dollars in stolen cash. Sloan then began the enormous legal process of returning the money to the hundreds of innocent drivers who had been victimized over the years. Later, Darius Mercer returned to the driver's seat of the Peterbilt 389. The false New Mexico plates were gone and had been replaced with a different set of covers. The dent left in the trailer's side panel where Pike had slammed him against the metal was still visible. Darius considered it a badge of honor. Everett Shaw climbed onto the passenger side step and handed him a fresh cup of black coffee. "Ready for the next operation?" Shaw asked. "Intelligence reports indicate that a sheriff in Louisiana is operating a speed trap scheme that makes Ridgefield look like an amateur operation." Darius took a sip of the hot coffee and studied the horizon. He adjusted his grease-stained baseball cap and gave a subtle nod. "Trailer's empty?" he asked. Everett smiled. Darius shifted the massive truck into gear. "Then let's go for a drive." Did this true-to-life story of justice being served send chills down your spine? For more thrilling stories about corruption being exposed and justice finally prevailing, press the like button now. Share this video with your friends to help spread the message. Subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell so you never miss a new upload. More unbelievable stories are coming.